Manchester Movie Mall.
Excellent!
Fool can be killed or a heavy blow to the skull.
More powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Fool can be killed.
So Bill and Ted Face the Music. How many years later is it, guys? I can't remember.
29. 29 years.
later.
29.
Wow.
And the film begins with the old Orion logo, which they must have resurrected that company again, because that famously went bust in the early 90s.
It got bought out by MGM.
Yes.
In 2014, I think they brought it back.
Was that right? Okay. Oh, right. I didn't realize it was quite so established. I thought maybe they'd brought it back for this film, but all right, that's cool. It's nice to see it still going. I think, it went bust.
I believe the first one nearly didn't get made. Excellent Adventure. They shelved the film for a year, and then some other company bought it up as a bit of a fire sale, and just a year later it got made.
Yeah, I mean, I read an interview with Alex Winter and Kiana, and they basically completely forgotten about the film. They'd made it, thought it was okay, got shelved, like you said, and then literally as they were walking down the street, people started calling out the catchphrases, and that they suddenly knew that they had something. People started shouting "excellent" and stuff, and the California, Southern California speak.
I didn't realize the first one was quite as old as 1989. For some reason, I thought these were both. I had them in my brain; they were kind of both early 90s films, but in fact, only the second one is from 1991. And the first one's quite far back, and it predates things like Wayne's World, which was kind of seen as a what's the word, contemporaneous to these films. So I was surprised to see the first one was 1989.
Yeah, basically the fashions give it away a bit in the first one, and the band references in the first one, but it's completely loose and timeless in a way, isn't it? Because of the special effects are quite cheap, but they're purposely cheap. I think that and just the storyline, the plot is so so out there that you just ride along with it all the way through and just suspend belief from beginning to end.
I think a comedy adventure film is probably the hardest film to pull off because your budgets are so low, and comedy itself is such a hard thing to do well. They've done really well. So all three films are pretty good, really, aren't they? I mean, my favourite's probably the first one. I don't know. You Rob, didn't you say Bogus Journey?
Yeah, I've just got a soft spot for it. I loved the character of Death, which we'll talk about in a bit for the
William Sadler. Yeah, brilliant.
And I thought the storyline's great, that there's hell and evil Uzzies, and the traveling back and forth in time and meeting versions of themselves is a lot of this is recreated again, but
I don't think you can go too wrong with a plot line like that. As long as you kind of keep it pacey and moving. I think this third film does that. And you got the elements of like time travel and meeting past and future versions of yourself, and
because the first one was all time travel, wasn't it? The second one was it was originally called Bill and Ted Go to Hell, and it was all about them being sent to hell, wasn't it? And then the third one is almost like they've put the first two in a blender, and then they've just combined
elements of both.
The first two.
Yeah. That's what I mean. The plot basically for people, not to do any spoilers, but the plot is it's 29 years later, and Bill and Ted were supposed to have made a song which was supposed to unite time and the space and the galaxy and humanity and space, and this song hasn't happened. And Bill and Ted had momentary success as a band while Stallions.
And they've had a long career, haven't they? They've had a long career, and they've released lots and lots of albums, which kind of started off. They seem to have started off reasonably successfully, but as the film shows, in kind of like a little montage sequence, they seem to be becoming less and less successful as they go, and people are becoming less and less interested. and it
Yeah,
looks like Death is ejected from the band at some point.
yes, yeah.
Although I don't remember him. This is a real blind spot for me. I was watching the third one. And I thought I don't remember the first and the second ones at all. Though I have seen them, but it may well be that it's about 25 years since I've seen either of the films. I mean, I've got some vague recollections of both of them, but I really need to kind of dip back and go back to them and see what they're like.
Yeah, to be fair, in Bogus Journey, in the end credits, there's like after they've played "God Gave Rock and Roll," there's
Yes.
also like fake magazine covers
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
band, and one of the
Right.
magazine covers says that Death splits from Wild Stallions, so it
Right.
talks about the band and the the future and the success. So it kind of nods towards this film, which picks up the baton straight away.
I wonder if they did that deliberately, thinking that could be like a plot thread for another film.
It was added on by the end by the production company, I think. So it wasn't even something that was written. They just added these stories at the end of the movie just to sort of as a bit of fun.
Yeah.
But it kind of made writing the third one a lot more difficult because they kind of had to explain why. Because they kind of said that Bill and Ted were this amazing success, and they played a gig on the moon or
Oh, I
something.
remember that. Yeah.
And they had to sort of explain away. No, the success was very temporary, and it kind of it came to a halt pretty quickly.
We'll go back to the plot. So basically, Bill and Ted were supposed to write this amazing track, and of course, it's failed. They haven't done it. They're playing weddings. They're playing at his own brother's wedding, Ted's brother's wedding, and and they come up with the idea after being visited by Rufus's daughter to travel to the future to steal the song from their future selves, which I thought was a great idea. It's like really in keeping with all the other two films.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up, isn't it? That Missy from the original films is marrying Ted's brother Deacon.
Yeah, so Missy.
There's that line where he says something. Missy is now Ted's father. Sorry, Ted's father is now his own son or something.
It's the darkest character, isn't she? Because Missy was married to Bill's dad, and then Ted's dad, and now she's marrying Ted's younger brother. So, and it's the original actress, isn't it, in the film?
I thought that's a plot detail from the films that I've completely forgotten about. I was trying to follow it, but I watched the scene twice. I thought probably I need to go back and watch the first two. But I think I've got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to go back and unpick that.
Yeah, it's all the original cast, which is brilliant. Even the fathers are the same actors, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's amazing that after 29 years, these people are still around. And
Rufus is no longer with us.
No, that was sad. Yeah,
he died in.
Wasn't it?
That's right, George Carlin. Yeah,
George Carlin. Died in 2008, didn't he? Yeah, but I think pretty much
wow,
everybody
that's
else
a long
is
time ago.
back in it. Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun scene. So they had him playing the theremin and the throat singing, and it was pretty awful, really.
It's received politely. It's received politely, I think, which is the best way you can. Although Bill and Ted's daughters seem to enjoy it as it's being played.
Yeah,
but it's definitely a bit of a dirty. There's even bagpipes involved at one point. So that they've gone quite far away from producing this magical song that will unite the world.
Yeah, on the surface, it seems that their daughters, which they've had with the English princesses, are like doppelgangers of them. That they appear to be outwardly as positive and a bit dim as they are, but there's a lot more to them, isn't there? As the film develops.
Yeah, they're quite clever, really, aren't they? They're quite.
They're actually
music
talented
knowledge
as well. Yeah,
their music knowledge exceeds their dads. I think they were really good. I think one of the things that I think this film really got right is the way that Keanu and Alex played Bill and Ted. They played him just the right amount of energy. I think if they played them at a really high energy, it would have come across weird. If they tried to recreate that 89, 91 Bill and Ted, it would have been really weird. But it was a bit more aged Bill and Ted, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was so relieved they didn't keep all the original, the language, like the excellence and party on and electric guitar playing, because it would have been embarrassing and it would have got absolutely slated.
But that does crop up every now and again. They do use the the phrases and the and the air guitar quite a few times, but not, I suppose, not to the extent that they probably did in the first two.
And they're not as stupid, are they? They're a bit more world weary. They've
Yes,
been around,
yeah.
So.
The other thing in the plot, of course, is Bill and Ted are attending kind of like what they call it, couples therapy with their English wives as well, aren't they? Because
Joanna and Elizabeth, played by the original cast as well.
Yeah.
And there's basically they can't understand why them seeing themselves as the same entity is a problem for the wives. There's quite a funny little scene there, isn't there? With like, I and Ted totally love and worship you and Elizabeth.
Yeah, I thought that was really sweet. It's almost like their friendship is like so pure and so all consuming. They don't see it as a problem to anyone else, which is the same friendship with the daughters in the film as well. So it's it was quite
that's
nice.
true. I hadn't thought about that.
The daughters were great. I mean, fantastic. That Billy, the actress who plays Billy, just a complete Keanu impression, just a perfect Keanu impression.
Yeah, she was really good. I thought she was brilliant. And then the other young lady is the niece of the actor Hugo Weaving. She's called, is it Samantha Weaving? She's called, or Samara Weaving.
Samara.
Yeah,
Weaving.
and she was really good too.
She was in Ready or Not, which is a really good film. That was one that came out.
Because quite a lot is expected of them in terms of the film and the plot, because the film does move away from Bill and Ted quite a few times. Oh yeah, and it kind of rests with the two daughters for good chunks of time in the film. And I think if they'd been like cast poorly or hadn't been written particularly well, those are chunks of the film that would probably have kind of not failed, but they would have been kind of like the bits where come on, let's get to some more Bill and Ted. But actually, I don't think you ever get that feeling.
No, it's quite an ensemble film, isn't it? And you
definitely,
and you quite enjoy it for that. It's you don't, because I have to say, but as well, going on, like Alex Winter has not aged one day, has he?
No, what is he
He's
on?
aged better than Keanu. Yeah.
To be fair though, how old are they? I don't even look into this, but they must be in the 50s. They must be in the late 50s.
Yeah, definitely.
Alex Winter does look good.
And he's not really acted much, has he, recently? I know he's done a few voiceover roles and stuff, but he's mainly a director now, isn't he?
I think he's got a bit of a he's gone more into the directing side of things. Although I noticed, we were talking about Pay Dirt and what's the other one, College Travolta one? I've forgotten. I blanked it.
The Fanatic.
The Fanatic. The stars that get their names on the on Dummy Bar on the they get their names on the producing credits, don't they? And I know this is a bit later on, but you see later on that Alex Winter is indeed one of the named producers on this film. So again, that tradition of actors getting involved with these projects and probably saying at the beginning, yeah, I'll get involved, but I need to be in on some of the producing side of the action as well.
And it's the same writers, isn't it, from the first two, the Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon?
Yeah.
I think Ed Solomon's had quite a prolific career. I think Chris Matheson, I looked through his recent films that he'd written, and there weren't too many ones I was familiar with, really. And it was, you could tell, really, wasn't it? The scripts were up to standard of the first two.
It's everything. It said the costumes and the retrograding special effects, and it's so respectful to the first two films. The only time I think I saw any budget really hypered is when they travel in the time machine.
It was a little bit it was similar to the first two, the graphics, wasn't it? Just a little bit better rendered, but it wasn't. It was pretty basic, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was budget was $25 million for this one.
That's
so
wage.
While probably, and while it's not, films these days have been made for like $200-300 million. So I suppose, really, in relative terms, that's it's something of a drop in the ocean.
I have to say as well, there's natural prosthetic special effects in the film, isn't there?
Yes,
which looks amazing.
Yeah, they were good actually, because sometimes they let it down a little bit. Like in Back to the Future 2, when they get the prosthetics, and you're like, oh, okay, they're wearing a prosthetic. I'll let it off because it's Back to the Future too. But you can kind of tell. Whereas in this film, it's oh no, they look good.
Yeah.
The scene with the guys in the prison,
Oh, that's
that
perfect.
was super.
for
wasn't
instance,
it?
yeah.
My favourite sequence. Yeah. I mean, if we go back to the plot, so they're traveling into the future, traveling in the future to steal the song from their future selves, and every time they go in the future, this is where the comedy ensues. They keep on meeting worse versions of themselves, and the prison inmates are incredible. And who are prison inmates because of Bill and Ted, aren't they? Because
Yes,
they,
it's their
they,
fault.
they jump into a cameo role from Dave Grohl's house, and steal music from the Foo Fighters.
So we should probably say about Kelly, who plays Rufus's daughter, comes back to visit the boys, and she appears out of what looks like a giant white vagina. I don't know. It's kind of very weird looking time machine.
Were there white vaginas in the first two films, guys? I really can't
No,
remember.
it was the
No.
telephone box, I think.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like a traveling tampons, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we see the future San Dimas. Is it like from 27 to 22 or something like that?
Right, I've written this down. Hang on. So we've got 2022. They go to visit them, the future selves, when they're performing at a bar in the daytime, and no one's watching them play. This is 2022, but this is where they find out that their wives have left them, and their daughters won't talk to them. So this is the future as it's presumably like progressing if things don't change.
It was a strange subplot that for the wives, wasn't it, really? We saw them jumping into time machines, but didn't really see where they were going and what they were doing. I think that's probably one of my only criticisms of the movie. Either show it or don't include it. You know, they could have left them in
there's
the
an elderly
separate
version. There's an elderly version of the pair as well, and they cropped up and they actually steal the time machine at one point. And
I mean,
maybe that was cut out from the movie or something.
Maybe they took scenes out, just to make it
make it cheaper.
A good 90 minutes. Yeah, they might have filmed them.
The second plot there's two main plots. The first plot is Bill and Ted traveling into the future to steal the song, and the second plot is the daughters traveling back in time to put together a super group from the best musicians in history.
Yes,
and that's done quite well. That's like Jimi Hendrix and who else did they get?
Louis Armstrong, wasn't it?
Louis
But
Armstrong,
it was weird that they had to travel back to 1922 from 67. They could have just stayed in 67 because I think he'd just released What a Wonderful World.
I'm still alive, yeah.
He would have been around, wouldn't he? Definitely. There's a lot going on. There's another element of the plot that's introduced around this time where in the future it transpires that Kelly's mother kind of suggests that it's actually going to be, it's not going to be a song by Bill and Ted that unites the universe. It's going to be the death of Bill and Ted that unites the universe. So with this in mind, they assign this
killer robot
kind of decked in kind of white, futuristic, kind of plastic looking thing, who at first seems like they mean business.
He's named after Kelly's ex-boyfriend as well. It's like her mum's just trying to piss her off the whole way through this movie. Yeah.
Mums and daughters. Yes.
What did you think of the robot? I didn't think it quite landed with the gags and stuff. I kind of get it, the sort of self-conscious robot, but it didn't.
Yeah, it was a bit like Marvin, the paranoid android from Hitchhikers, wasn't it? And he was a bit melancholic because nobody noticed him, and he just wanted a friend. And,
I thought it was kind of amusing when he became, what's the word, conscious of his own personality. He became kind of awoken, and he becomes this just kind of introverted, nerdy kind of robot, always kind of looking to and he kept telling everyone what his name was. It's like he's discovered his name for the first time, and he's telling everyone.
I'm Dennis.
You know.
What was it? I'm Dennis Caleb McKee or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah, it was funny in places, but I think they maybe did the joke a few too many times.
yeah,
Yeah.
part of Bill and Ted is that you just have to let all suspension of reality go, don't you?
Yeah,
If you
it's just
question anything, if you question anything like space-time continuum and holes in the time vortex,
Yeah, I mean,
there's
I'm
no-
sure if you sat and picked at the plot,
there is
if you sat and
absolutely
picked at
no,
this thing,
yeah,
there would, you would find loads of holes. Like I didn't quite understand how are Bill and Ted visiting themselves if in the future, if the world's going to come to an end, have I got the wrong end of the stick there?
No,
but
there's
that's
just plot.
no.
Yeah, it's just a Bill
Anyway,
and Ted
it doesn't
movie
matter.
for
It
you,
doesn't
really.
matter. I don't
There's-
care.
There's
It's
no
fine.
logic.
Yeah,
But that's it. Bill and Ted is a science fiction without science.
yeah. It's all in the execution of the
Yeah.
film, isn't it? You can overlook little things like that. So the daughters, So the daughters go back to London in 1967. Like you said, Rob, they go to a Jimi Hendrix rehearsal,
Yeah.
and they want him to join their band. And first he says no. So they think, let's get someone else to try and persuade Jimi Hendrix to join. And they go back to New Orleans in 1922 to find a young Louis Armstrong. And to entice him in, they show him phone footage that they've taken of Jimi Hendrix playing his guitar, which he and his band all seem to like and enjoy.
I did find the musician choices really strange. So they got Jimi Hendrix, got Louis Armstrong, and then they go back to like a prehistoric cave woman drummer who I wasn't aware of, and then they go to like a Japanese flutist, which rather
600 BCE.
yeah,
I'm guessing that's before Christ existed.
yeah.
I thought BC would have sufficed, but I wonder if that's something to do with rights and having to pay for likeness and things like that.
That's what I thought because obviously if you're going to put
They've probably had to think, okay, Louis Armstrong, Jimi Hendrix, and they might have paid some money out to use their likenesses, like their image rights, and then perhaps they thought, okay, let's go and find someone who's kind of copyright free, like Mozart, and then further back in musical history. So I don't know any of the ones that they went to North Africa for the drummer, China. I don't know if they're real people or not. I guess they might be.
Well, the thing is, with someone like Mozart, I think you were a heretic and probably try and burn you at the stake as a witch. And it's like but I love the fact in Bill and Ted that all these people in time, like in the first film, just nod and get along for the ride, don't they?
Yeah, they're all totally up for it, and just accept everything that's happening to them
They all
without question.
speak the same language, like in the first film. Just get on.
So after the girls have been to 67 and 22 and recruited Jimi Hendrix and Louis Armstrong, Bill and Ted then go to 2025, which is a little further ahead in the future, and they find Bill and Ted in a mansion, and they've both got English accents, and they say this is because they've been time traveling to medieval England quite a lot, and so they've picked up these English rock star accents.
We could be getting to areas of spoilers here, but they basically got these English accents. They've been spending all this time in medieval Britain, and it's kind of a bit of a Rolling Stones piss take, isn't it? Of the English elder rock band, really. But
definitely.
Then, what was your reaction when you saw the Dave Grohl coming through the door? I nearly spit my tea out of it.
So, well, actually, this is a spoiler as well, isn't it? Because what they think is Bill and Ted is that Bill and Ted have the Bill and Ted of 2025 have the song. They say to them, "Yes, we've got the song. Here it is." But instead, Lee, I'll let you take over now because Dave Grohl. They leave.
It's a Dave Grohl song. Basically, it's his house, and then we see Alex Winter taking his wig off. He's got his bald head. We see Ted's alcoholic beer belly. And that was quite a fun bit of the film, wasn't it? They were taking the piss out of themselves a little bit, and then a gun appears out of nowhere, and suddenly, like Bill's firing at himself.
Yeah, they're trying to
Shooting
kill.
himself.
They're trying to kill themselves, and they realise the only way to trick yourself is by being not aware of what you're doing. So they put buckets on their heads, don't they? And start. Which that was a very funny scene. I give them that.
And inevitably ends up with them falling off a balcony to the ground below. So yeah, they've been hoodwinked by the 2025 Bill and Ted, and it's so yeah. Lee, you posed a question to us a few days ago about how does Bill and Ted Face the Music? What is the connection between this film and the film The Fanatic that we reviewed in our podcast number 2? And I figured it out. It's literally the only 2 films in existence that use the word poppycock. Poppycock.
Yeah. Well, I keep hearing this word all the time now. I was watching Enola Holmes last night, and they were using it in that. And I've never heard an English person use poppycock in real life.
No.
I just think it's something Americans think we say. I don't know.
Do you think all the American screenwriters are getting together, like playing bets with each other, saying, "Oh, hey man, I bet you can't get the word poppycock into your script," and they're all kind of sniggering to themselves, saying, "Yeah, I can. Here it is."
I thought it was floppy cock.
Rob, that's personal. That's personal. Yeah.
We'll be sponsored by Blue Chew soon. Don't worry. We'll sort that floppy cock out.
Cut. So the girls. I can't remember what happens to the boys after this, but the next note I've got is that the girls, the daughters, get Jimi Hendrix, and then they are shown then going back to Vienna in 1782 for none other than Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Yeah, and then don't they bring everybody back to 2020 again? And I think Kid Cudi, I'm not too familiar with a American rapper, appears out of nowhere.
Yeah. He plays himself, doesn't he?
Yeah, he plays himself. He's suddenly just, because the timeline's breaking down, so suddenly you're seeing Mozart appear, you're seeing Kid Cudi appear, you're seeing all these different Jesus pops out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's a nice scene with where they go to find Mozart, and Jimi Hendrix plugs his electric guitar in, and Jimmy starts kind of riffing along to whatever Mozart is playing on his piano, one of his famous pieces. And I thought that was quite nice. I quite enjoyed that bit.
He plays along with Louis Armstrong's trumpet as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So like call and reply thing. Yeah.
We were just talking about the bit where Bill and Ted have fallen out the window. Everybody's back in the present day, and I think the robot appears to zap everybody with his weapon.
Yeah, he tries to kill Bill and Ted, who just escape in time, but he eventually. He does eventually. He was responsible for killing Ted, all these great musicians, and Bill and Ted's daughters as well, and sending them to hell.
And Ted's dad as well in the police van. I think they all go to hell in the police van, didn't they?
That's it, yeah. And then of course, the robot feels immense guilt for this, doesn't it? Because he's awoke.
The robot basically decides to kill himself, and Bill and Ted just pile on at the end, and they get blasted into hell as well, don't they? So they're trying to find the daughters.
That's right, but guys, there's a scene we've forgotten. The boys, Bill and Ted, go forward to San Dimas in 2030, and of course, as a result of the encounter at Dave Grohl's house, the future Bill and Ted now find themselves in prison. And I don't know, Rob, do you want to talk about the prosthetics here and this scene?
It's incredible. It's like I don't know if anyone's. Quite often you see people wearing fat suits and they always look a bit unconvincing. But Bill and Ted, the idea is that they've been in jail for how many years is it supposed to be?
I think it's another 5 since they were arrested. So 5 years.
In 5 years of jail, they've done nothing but take steroids and pump weights. And they get these like existing little pinheads on these giant muscular prosthetic bodies covered in tattoos, and the tattoos are things like excellent and bogus. And they're complete meatheads, aren't they? And the first thing they want to do the first thing they want to do to Bill and Ted is stamp them to death, don't they?
Yeah, they want to take over, don't they? They want to sort of kill the Bill and Ted and just sort of take over the operation, really. But
well, they figure out, don't they, that killing them would be bad for them because, of course, that would kind of in turn kill them. And I think they only come to this realization when the robot turns up again.
Mm.
The robot turns up just after Bill and Ted do, and so the kind of the prison bound, muscular, steroidy Bill and Ted, they kind of they decide to kind of pile it on the robot with all the other prisoners instead of Bill and Ted, and so the original Bill and Ted are then kind of allowed to escape as a consequence.
Mm. And it's and we're getting towards the scene which I was really looking forward to when I watched it, because as I said at the beginning of this, that my favourite character in the second film was Death. And when they finally get the robot tries to kill himself and they jump in on it and die together. We suddenly are introduced to hell again, aren't we? For the first time in 29 years.
And of course, when Bill and Ted and the robot arrive, and I thought there's a nice little joke where Bill and Ted seem to just, they arrive in hell and they pick themselves up off the ground, and then all of a sudden behind them, the robot drops behind them, and they quite rightly kind of say, "Why is a robot come to hell?" Like it's not really logical, but okay, we'll have it.
It's what's great about it is that they're in hell and it's the sound of screams in the distance and people being murdered and tortured, and they're just really matter of fact about it, aren't they? Just dust themselves down, start asking demons the way to find their daughters, and just plow on through. Because if you think about it, in the first, when we go to hell in Bogus Journey, they call the devil a dick. They stand there and call him a big dick, and and he sends them deep into a hell, doesn't it? Into their personal hells. But,
yes.
Yeah. So it was great, and they made hell look exactly as it did, in the previous films. Just sound effects and dimly lit corridors and bright lights and fiery backgrounds. It was very cheapo looking.
Yes.
And it kind of it was good. It was really just like brought me back.
It was great to see Death again as well, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Played well.
Death isn't
William
speaking to
Sadler.
them though. Death is not speaking to Bill and Ted. He's not happy with them.
No, because Death went off on one during the Wild Stallions phase. He started playing 40-minute bass solos, and
did he try and steal the name or something?
Yeah.
Most people would pay good money to pay a 40-minute bass solo by Death from the Bill and Ted movies. I think a lot of people would pay good money for that. I know I would.
I love the fact is that he is deaf. He decides life or death, and Deaf is a pretentious musician who's got a really fragile ego, hasn't he? And you have to flatter Deaf to try and get back home, back to Earth again.
They have to rope the daughters in. The daughters have to flatter Death, don't they, to kind of massage his ego to the extent where Bill and Ted can then come in and say, would you consider rejoining the band? At which point he kind of gets all emotional, doesn't he? And agrees finally. And Death is played by that's called William Sadler, and he was in lots of films in the early '90s. He normally played kind of like the baddies. He's the baddie in Die Hard 2, and he's also the villain in a Steven Seagal film from around that time called Hard to Kill. And so he was quite a busy actor kind of in the early 90s, which I guess was when Bogus Journey came out. He wasn't in the first one, but he was in the Bogus Journey. And what a popular character. I mean, if of all the characters from the franchise, I think he's probably most fondly remembered, apart from maybe the main characters.
A lot of it's kind of improv work by William.
I think so.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I think it's. I mean, this is it's about 3/4 of the way through the film, isn't it? And I was a bit gutted. I wanted him earlier, but it does make sense for the plot. But most things in the plot don't make sense. But they wait that long to put him in, and anyone who's seen the first two films is waiting for that character to come back.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I can imagine if I saw it in the cinema, it would have been a big cheer moment when he appeared on the screen. But
Definitely. And he's another one. Again, checking out the credits at the end, William Sadler, one of the named executive producers of this film as well. So he's definitely he's agreed to return to this one only if. So he's followed the well trodden path of Val Kilmer and John Travolta,
from the producer, yeah.
Alex Winter, and he's got his name on the on that producer's roll call. And quite right too, because he must have known he's kind of he's an essential component.
There's also, I love the fact he referenced the old films, doesn't he? And it tells how much trouble he got into last time for bringing them back from the dead in the previous film. So it is a film.
If happily does it again later on, anyway, he couldn't have gone into that much trouble, really.
Yeah, it is a film where, like, if you didn't see the first two films all the way through, I was trying to imagine if I'd never seen the first two films, how confused would I be, or would I just accept it?
I think you'd be pretty confused, yeah.
Well,
it is a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Because I've not seen the first two for such a long time, I've got a sketchy memory of them. I think I'm kind of that person, but I think, to be honest, there's so much goodwill in the film anyway that you just kind of happily go along with it. I think
you can tell there's a lot of love has gone into the making of this film, hasn't it? They've gone to great effort to keep that vibe of the first two, the same writers, the same special effects guys.
And interestingly, I think there must be fans of the first film who were involved, who are like, talented people, because one of the executive producers, the main one, I think, is Steven Soderbergh. And he wasn't involved in the first two films at all. But obviously, I'm guessing he's a fan, or he's had an opportunity to kind of get involved in making this one. I guess he's jumped at it.
Yeah. It's what's not to like about it, I suppose. I mean, the third film compared to the first two is, for its flaws, it's quite messy, isn't it? It's like you said, you mentioned earlier, there's lots of like plot things developed which never go anywhere. After 29 years, they probably had so many ideas, and they kind of like teased them and then decided to go a different way all the time. And even when they edited it down, it was quite, there was still some of those little things were still there, like with the wives time traveling. It's not really, you don't see it.
I mean, for me as well, the runtime of this film is a bit of a giveaway. It's pretty much dead on 90 minutes, and I think
it was really short, wasn't it? Yeah,
that must have been the runtime. They were thinking, we want to try and get as many screenings in as we can. Let's chop it down to 90.
Needed a bit of we'll talk about the end of the film, but I do think it needed a bit of an epilogue there at the end. I know they have the scene, spoiler alert, after the credits, but it needed a bit more. I think it would have been nice if we'd seen the families back together after the gig and everything.
Maybe, unless the idea was. We'll talk about it more later. Yeah. So where are we up to in the plot? I can't remember where we got to now. They're all in hell. They're
all in hell. Def's back on board, and he takes them back up to reality in the police van.
Yes.
So that's the whole
this
gang
is everyone. This is the band. This is the dad.
Yeah.
The daughters and Bill and Ted and the robot and anyone else I've forgotten. I think that's everyone.
Yeah, no station
there at this point as well for reasons I can't remember. But they're there.
Reality is starting to break down further. We've got more and more disruptions. There's Jesus and everything, and his disciples flying everywhere. We see Saturn suddenly appears right next to the Earth. That gets drawn into the. So it's not just people from time; it's also planets are being disturbed.
That's right. The pyramids are there. Just down the road from San Dimas.
And then we get quite a nice touching bit with the wives coming back from their journey through all the different times, and they decide that this was the time that they were most happiest with the boys, even though we didn't get to see it.
Even though we've not seen any of their earlier encounters, but it's nice little touch. Maybe they'll just release those scenes in a separate film. In a few years, saying Bill and Ted Face the music. the wives or something like that.
First Wives Club.
So they have this idea to create infinite versions of themselves and distribute infinite musical instruments to everybody in the world.
They do, and somehow they realise that they're not the ones supposed to be making the spoiler alert. By the way, that they're not the ones supposed to make this fantastic song that unites the world. It's actually their daughters.
Yeah,
who
that was a really nice touch.
Kind of, they're talent. They're the talented ones. You know, they're like them, but they're, like you said, with the ones with the kind of real talent, and all of a sudden it dawns on them.
It's also everybody. It's not so much the song; it's everybody coming together to sing the song and play the music in time, in harmony.
Not the song; it's everyone playing together. And what a great message! What a great message for a film. I know this may sound a little kind of corny, but I really like that part.
Yeah, I also
really like the message that you sometimes have to accept your time has moved on, and Bill and Ted have had their fame, they've had their moments, and they're happy to pass that on to the next generation. And it was also saying about Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter in a way that this is probably the last time you'll see them, you know, as these goofball teenagers, because they're not anymore. They're 55-year-old, you know, fathers, you know, who've been around a long time, and they've had their moment, and you should enjoy it whilst you can.
I don't think we're going to get a Bill and Ted 4, are we? I think they pretty much dismissed that.
Yeah.
So let's talk box office, because at the moment, like I said before, it's the budget was $25 million. The worldwide box office as it stands, because it's still on release, but I mean it's been out for a while. The worldwide box office as it stands is just over $5 million.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that on the streaming platforms in America and the US, it's made some money there too. It's made $32 million as a video on demand title. And it's still to be released here as a video on demand in the UK and kind of elsewhere in the world. And it's still got to be released on Blu-ray. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've made money on it, but I wouldn't know if that would class the film as a success or not. But I think they'd probably have to wait all their revenues to come in.
For 2020, that's probably a success, isn't it? I think to break even would probably be a success.
Yeah.
Also, you have to. I mean, I'm not naive. All films have to make money, but I do get the feeling for all of them involved, it's a passion project, and they're prepared to take a little bit of a loss because of obviously COVID. It's it's unlike the Bond film, which has to be put back because Bond has to be successful. It can't, the franchise can't afford a loss. Yeah,
I don't think there's been a Bond film that has flopped. So if no, I don't think anyone wants to have that kind of first, But yeah, this one. I mean, this one has made money, and but I mean, on a budget of 25 million, if it's making 37 at the moment, it'll probably take. I have no ideas. It might take 50, 60 maybe.
Also, what you just said, Carl, about the box office, it's cyclical because the first film was a complete flop. And then it became a cult video hire.
Oh, I remember renting it on video a few times. I think everyone did. It had good word of mouth, and lots of kids at school were kind of watching it as well.
I think it'll do well because I think it's the kind of movie that you can watch with your kids, and the parents will have a good time, the kids will have a good time.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know what the rating is. I don't know what the BBFC rating is for this, but I would guess this is a PG all over the place. I can't imagine it being a 12.
If we go to about the soundtrack avoids being quite as pitting. The first films are very much like, big hair rock, aren't they?
Yes.
And they really avoid that in this film. Like, if you think about the Bogus Journey finishes on a Kiss song.
Well, this one's got Weezer on the soundtrack, which is quite a good song. Beginning of the end is worth checking out, definitely. You're right. It's a bit more indie than or alternative than rock, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like
Kiss was pretty corporate, and I think that was a criticism of the second film from some quarters, which was it was kind of, whereas the Excellent Adventure was kind of like the low budget indie film. The second one was
There was one
the studio had grabbed it and made their version of it.
There was one last point that I forgot to make about the film, and did you notice at the end where Kelly's mum's saying your father would be so proud of you? I thought at the end of the day, you've just basically, your robot nearly killed everybody, or did kill everybody, and you're there like patting Kelly on the back. You know, your father would be so proud. Yeah,
These
thanks,
plot
mum.
points,
You know,
yeah, they make
What's
no
the name-
sense. Plot points, do they? They really
Yeah.
don't. They don't stand up to scrutiny at
she
all.
should have been in chains, really.
What's the name of the actress who plays Kelly? She's from Flight of the Conchords. What's she called?
Christine
She was in
Schaff, I
Kristen
think it is.
Shaw. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Shaw,
remember what she
sorry.
was in. Yeah,
Did you notice she was wearing the same costume as in Excellent Journey, The People of the Future, where they wear these like ridiculous polyester, big wide cut suits?
no,
Yeah,
I didn't. I didn't
I
spot
mean,
that. but
she's
when I-
really funny. She's really funny in most stuff she's usually in, but I didn't think they gave her any funny lines in this one. Was it? It's quite a straight role that she played her.
She had nothing to work with, and if you know, although I enjoyed the film, I'm going to definitely say, you know, I'd recommend watching it. It's not as laugh out loud. It's got a lot of snigger moments, but there's not many laugh out loud moments, is there? But
No.
maybe it doesn't need that.
What?
You know,
You mentioned that, Rob, and I think I was thinking about this. The tone of the film. Think about the times we're living in at the moment. The tone of the film is just one of kind of warmth and goodwill. And
Yeah.
the film it reminded me of in terms of tone was, you know, the Will Ferrell Eurovision Song Contest, Fireside.
yeah.
Yeah,
It kind of reminded me of that because I remember watching that film, not really kind of any big belly laughs at any point, one or two, but just quite enjoying the film because it was quite you know, it just kind of generated quite a warm feeling, I thought. And
I think we all just need a bit of escapism, don't we, at the moment? So
yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at what's on telly at the moment, look at BBC iPlayer, it's all like, you know, real life murders and grim stuff and EastEnders and all this kind of stuff that you don't really want to watch at the moment. So I think this is kind of the perfect tonic, really, for things that are going on in the world at the moment. I don't know how this film would have done if it last year, but
it's a strange one. It's like I follow a lot of comedians on Twitter and stuff, and a lot of them, there's almost like a guilt about laughing at the moment. Maybe that's why they're not going for the big gags anymore. And it's like we all have. It's such ultra serious times, isn't it? But laughter and comedy and films like this are so essential. Just like mental health. We can't constantly watch true life crimes and listen to murder podcasts.
No, only 90%. We can do that.
We were quite lucky in the 90s, weren't we? Really, because we didn't have any. There was no rolling news. There was none of this constantly being obsessed by Twitter and social media. I need to watch that Social Dilemma. Actually, have you heard about that? The documentary on social media. It's on Netflix, I think. Just about how it's influencing everybody, and you know, it's becoming a negative role in people's lives. So it's the antidote to 2020. This film.
Yeah. So if we go to our obviously we are the Manchester Movie Morgue podcast.
I was going to say that.
And yeah, the last two films are definitely Carcasses, which have to stay in the morgue.
They're rotting. They're rotting as we speak. No one's claimed. No one's claimed.
I think this is the first helicopter to freedom, isn't it? This is maybe not quite in the helicopter, maybe just holding on to one of the legs of the helicopter, you know, desperately, but just getting out.
I would say this is a plucky survivor who maybe has a scratch or a bite on its ankle.
Yes,
I wish this film all the goodwill in the world. So for me, this film escapes. This film clings onto that helicopter rung, and it gets the hell out of there. And fair play to it.
And it's flying away, it waves down at Val Kilmer Travolta from The Fanatic and paid podcast episode 1 and 2, by the way. And it waves back to them.
They're both highly entertaining.
And we should also mention that we've got a competition at the moment to win this film on Blu-ray and 4K. The film's not out to the end of November, so you've got quite a while to get involved. But on our Twitter account, which is MCR Movie Morgue, you can just like and retweet and follow us, and you'll be entered into the competition. And you've got a pretty good chance of winning it at the moment, because there's only about 30 people have retweeted it or something, so you got a pretty good chance.
So I'd also recommend coming on the Instagram page, and as I say, a few people have contacted me directly, but you'll mostly be speaking to me, but I speak for all of us when you do that, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and anything, any nonsense you want to throw my way. We are constantly sending messages out saying any films you want us to review in the future, and any ideas, we're happy to suggestions.
And to all the listeners, make sure that you, if you can, and if you're feeling safe, make sure you're supporting your local cinema where you can, if you can. Also, physical media, make sure you're getting the films that you want on disc, because they don't always stay on streaming services forever. So Bill and Ted Face of Music's a good example. You can win a disc, but it's also out in November, so do pick up a copy and keep it. That's what they. And keep these little companies keep these little companies ticking over, because a lot of them are struggling.
Yeah.
My threat to you, if you don't keep cinema alive, we'll be watching films like Pay Dirt and The Fanatic for the rest of our lives. So, please.
I think we need to send more films to freedom.
It's enjoyable actually talking about a film that you like, isn't it? Yeah. We should try it more often, sure.
I know, it's a weird one. I would say that obviously we're coming up to a Halloween season, so we are probably going to do the obvious and probably watch a big horror movie. But if you've got any ideas of which big horror movie to watch, we've obviously got the terrible Scream 5 coming up. I already know that's going to be in the morgue.
That's next year, isn't it? Sometime.
Is it next year?
2022.
Yeah,
I thought it was this year. God. Yeah.
We're also due a Halloween film this year, but that's also been bumped to 2021, I believe, as well. The next kind of one after the Carpenter produced Halloween of 2018. Sequel to that next year now, so we'll have to delve back into the archives and dig something.
I always go back to Halloween 3 for Halloween, because I love this creepy pumpkin video. The idea that you play this creepy advert.
I love it. For me, it's the only true Halloween sequel. The rest I can really just live without. But there's a first Halloween from '78, and then Halloween 3 is the only, for me, it's the only one I bother with. It's I agree. I think it's brilliant. But actually, Carpenter does great horror films on Halloween, like The Fog or Prince of Darkness. There are lots of potential films of his we could do for next podcast.
I think it's the season. We should do it.
Get in the spirit. Yeah,
let's get involved.
Well, anyway, I just want to say thanks once again to everyone who has been listening, and for everyone who's following now and sending messages. Please do, and keep it going.
Thank you, and
thanks,
and Lee and Rob, thank you for chatting nonsense with me, with us again about this film. Quite enjoyed this third podcast, and we'll hopefully reconvene again for a fourth at some point.
Yeah. Goodbye to my excellent friends.
Bye, dudes.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.